A little bit about self-myofascial release and recovery. And first, I want you to kind of think, and you guys will probably, I'm sure, I'll give me feedback on this one. You know that moment where you go to like stand up from a chair and you stand up and all of a sudden you feel like your hips lock up and you can't fully stand and it feels kind of like you're going to break in half to get all the way up. Or if you've ever gotten down on the ground and you're down there for a while and you go to get back up and, hey, Tom, come on over. Have a seat. Yeah, there you go. You're down on the ground, you're kind of doing something, maybe playing with kids, grandkids, whatever, and you all of a sudden try to get back up and you realize that you're kind of stuck in that position and it's really difficult to get back up. And you kind of have a moment of panic and then you realize you need somebody to help you get up, or you go over to a chair and kind of claw your way up from that chair. Most of us have had that at some point, even whenever we're younger, but whenever we're younger and we're in our 20s and that happens after a hard workout, we're like, oh, we just had a hard workout, who cares? When we're in our 60s, it's a little bit different. We start to get a little bit scared, a little bit nervous, but the reality is that it's just mobility. It isn't an age thing as much as a mobility thing. So if you can stay mobile throughout all of that, it's going to really help you feel better. It's going to help you look better, move better, and it's just basically going to make your workouts a lot more beneficial. So some of the things that we're going to be working on today are going to help you to do that, as well as a little discussion into recovery so that you understand how recovery actually works in your body to make it more beneficial for you overall. So some things we're going to be covering today. We're going to have an overview of self-myofascial release, what it is, why it works, how it works, things you should not do with it. We're going to talk about recovery and its purpose and how to make it effective for you. And then we're going to get a little hands-on. We're going to do some foam rolling, some trigger point. We'll do some Theragun and go through that and how to really use it well, because there's sometimes things that I see that are not the best. So we're going to go through all of that. First thing that I want to do is talk a little bit about the body and what some of these terms and words are. I want to talk about what fascia is. So fascia, whenever you're talking about like myofascial, is the covering of a muscle. And fascia separates like muscle from muscle. And so if you think of like your muscle, all the muscle fibers, and then you've got that fascia that's over top of it. It's kind of like the skin on a chicken breast. And it holds all of that together, but in between the muscle fibers and that fascia is a thin layer of fluid. Okay. Also, fascia is not contractile. It doesn't like to contract like a muscle does, but the muscle wants to contract, which is what that thin layer of fluid does. It allows space to let the muscle move and contract whenever you're doing things like walking, moving, working out, that kind of stuff. If something happens to increase that fluid in that space, could be a hard workout, it could be something more traumatic, any kind of tension or trauma to a muscle, gardening, anything like that, that increases that fluid, increases the pressure in between there, and then that fascia is going to adhese or kind of create a little constriction onto that muscle, and it's not going to allow the muscle to contract because of that adhesion, and that's called a myofascial restriction. And so that's what happens whenever you might get really tight after a workout and you kind of feel like, oh my gosh, I can't sit down on the toilet because I just kind of fall onto the toilet, because the quad muscle isn't going to be working well, and that fascia has a little bit too much fluid in between itself and the muscle fibers. So that's myofascial restrictions. Then we have something called trigger points. Trigger points are, think of them as the most excitable part of a muscle. Okay? Every muscle has at least one, maybe more, trigger points. We have trigger point charts that can tell you exactly where they are and how they function. This is how we know where they are, because mine are the same as yours, that are the same as yours. And we can track them and monitor them. And then like physical therapy, chiropractics, they do a lot of work with trigger points to make that's part of their therapy basis. So because it's that super excitable part of a muscle, if it gets a lot of tension, like for pretty much all of us here, whenever we used to have phones and we'd have to walk around like this, or if you're at a desk and you're like this a lot, or if you're doing surgery like this and you're in some kind of tense motion and this does not relax, that trigger point, and we all know that one right back there, is going to stay super excitable. And because you want the muscle to contract and relax like this, but it does not, and it stays contracted, that trigger point, thank you, is going to then start having a buildup of tissue, calcium, other byproduct, other waste, fluid. That's all going to create that knot that we feel that's much more intense. Okay. When a myofascial restriction and a trigger point are both things that can cause tension, pain, and irritability in the muscle and cause the muscle to not contract well at all. So they're things that we want to address with self-myofascial release. So kind of go over, hi Kim, what self-myofascial release is. Myofascial release is used by physical therapists, some masotherapists, chiropractors, and it's a way to manipulate the tissue to improve those two things, the myofascial restriction and your trigger points, among other things. But self-myofascial release is the ability to use a tool. It might be a tennis ball, a Theragun, a foam roller, and that tool you're going to use on yourself to do the same thing to an extent that a physical therapist would do to release those restrictions and adhesions. Whenever you are looking at foam rolling, we're going to start with that one. You guys have all, I think, has everybody here used a foam roller? Okay. When you use a foam roller, it should be a high density foam roller, meaning that it is not super soft and it shouldn't cave in, but it also has a little bit of give, okay? You always want to look for that high density. When you are rolling over the muscle, the purpose of the foam roller is to go over, back and forth across a muscle and create a little cross friction, allowing the fascia to cross friction between that and the muscle fibers, so that fluid that is built up gets released and pushed back into the bloodstream. To do that, which we'll be practicing later, you want to take about 5 to 6 slow controlled passes, or about a minute. You don't want to do too much because you don't want to break the muscle down more, but you need enough to be able to push and express a lot of that fluid back out into the bloodstream. What a lot of people do, though, is a super fast. Like, I'm sure you've seen it. Think 1 inch a second. So quads here, 8 inches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I think time is pretty imperative to getting that fluid pushed out of the muscle. So you want to take your time going back and forth through that muscle group. It's not a race. Doesn't matter. 5 or 6 passes are going to finish up whether or not you do them fast or slow. So the foam roller is very useful in that myofascial restriction and getting the fluid pushed back out into the bloodstream. Whenever you look at trigger points, you can use a foam roller, but a lot of times you need something that's a little bit more pinpointed, like a lacrosse ball or a tennis ball. A golf ball can be used for certain areas, but not most trigger points through the bulk of your body. Pretty much just the plantar fascia, which is very dense, is going to be the only place I would ever really suggest a golf ball. But these can get more pinpointed onto that trigger point. So remember how I said that that trigger point is a super excitable area? We're going to use that to our benefit. And you're going to, either with the foam roller or as you're rolling, if you find a trigger point, that knot that's really tense, you're then going to stop or swap out to something else. You're going to apply pressure on that knot, and you are trying to get it to be more excited. You're trying to really excite this muscle and get it to fire, 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 fire until it can't fire anymore and it gives up. Once it gives up, say this is the trigger point and I'm applying some pressure with the tennis ball. Once it gives up, then you slowly start rolling back and forth so you can work on pushing that byproduct that it was in that muscle knot out into the bloodstream. Okay, so the best way to think about what is going on is, I know my clients have, I'm not sure about everybody else's, but if you're doing something like, say, a push-up, and you're doing push-ups and you keep going and you keep going and your trainer's going, give me one more, give me one more. And then all of a sudden you can't do one more and you're kind of like, and then all of a sudden, you give up. That same thing is what we're looking for in that area of muscle. We're trying to get it to overexcite to where it then can't give anymore. So it gives up, the muscle fibers relax, then all of that stuff that is built out gets pushed back out. How do you know? You'll feel it. A lot of times you'll feel like if somebody has a trigger point that is maybe a little, like I'll call newer, and so it's a little bit more sensitive to pressure, then you will be on something and you'll feel a little, and then you'll just kind of go on over it and express that out. If you have, the ones that we all have that are super intense, that sometimes takes a couple of sessions, a couple of days. You're going to work on it. You're going to, work on getting that trigger point to release. You're going to go over it, and you always think a minute is your time frame. You don't really want to take more than that on any one area. Rolling, tennis ball, lacrosse ball, anything like that, because just like what we're trying to fix, if you create too much pressure, too much of anything, and break that muscle down more, then you're going to have a problem, and it's going to kind of rebound and build itself back up. So a minute on an area is all you really want to think about doing. So then we have usually what everybody loves, percussive therapy, which is like your Theraguns, this kind of thing. So percussive therapy is similar and can be used similar to foam rolling. It's just rather than you being the catalyst, or that with the foam roller, this is the catalyst to make it the reaction that you're trying to have occur in your body. So it can still be used widespread, to get fluid pushed out. It can be used on a trigger point and used to make that area fire until it gives up, just like anything else. It helps to increase blood flow, reduce muscle tension, and remove all of those byproducts. What Theraguns are good for a couple of different ways. First, if you can't manipulate yourself on a foam roller to get either at all or to certain areas, this is a great thing to use. A lot of times whenever I have clients that maybe are going to go under like some kind of surgery, like a hip replacement or knee replacement, they can do a lot, but they sometimes can't get into certain positions because that's why they are having their hip replaced. So we can use this to help them rather than trying to get them on a foam roller and not having them be able to manipulate themselves well or put them in a position of pain. Ways to use a Theragun. And so a Theragun uses that percussive therapy. So it is doing the work for you. You are not trying to help it at all. Whenever you have different attachments, and everybody's Theraguns or percussive guns are a little bit different, but a lot of them have different attachments. Ones that are broader, wider, bigger. And you want to start with something that's bigger and broader first until you know how the area is going to feel, and then work to something that goes until it gets smaller. Okay. And not necessarily in one session, but like over time. Try something bigger, work with it a little bit. If that felt good, but maybe didn't give you as much relief as you wanted to, then you might try something a little bit smaller. Another thing is if you have one that has variable speeds like this one does, you want to start at a lower speed and then work yourself up. You don't want to start at a high speed and just start off really strong if you don't know how it's going to feel and how you're going to react. You also want to make sure that you turn it on before you touch your body. Simply for the fact of if you have this here and you turn it on, your muscle is going to react and you'll create a little bit of a rebound effect. And you can actually create more myofascial restriction because of that instantaneous reaction from the percussion gun. So you always start it here and then you put it on your body. You also want to think nice, slow glides. 1 inch every second. So whenever I got people that are like they're in a race, slow it down a little bit. You want to make sure that it has time to actually feel that percussion against your body. If you hit a trigger point, stay on it, stay there, let the percussion do its job, and keep breathing through it. And the other thing that if I can stress any point out of all of this, it is you are not creating any pressure. You are just gliding it on your body. You're not there to put pressure. It's allowing you to relax and it's doing the work for you. so that you don't have to put any additional work into it. Work out again in any capacity for a week because you're resting. You are not going to have an adaptation, or it is going to be so slow and negligible that you will feel like you're getting nowhere. But the same does go, like I said, the other way. Too much work or stimulus and not enough recovery is going to give you the same results. So you've got to balance that out. So when we look at recovery strategies, there's three categories: sleep, nutrition, and then the category of other modalities. So sleep is probably the most important. And the reason why sleep is the most important, more important than nutrition, is because your circadian rhythms control all of your hormones. That's the first reason. But the second reason is because poor sleep also decreases your ability to metabolize glucose. And glucose, basically, think of it as like that's what runs your whole body. So if you are not metabolizing glucose effectively the day after poor sleep, you are not going to have a good recovery. So even if your nutrition is spot on, it's not going to matter. So sleep is always your biggest factor. You want to get as much quality sleep as you can. And sometimes that's hard whenever your brain's racing, or you can't sleep well, or you stay up too late, or you have a drink before you go to bed, and then you're a little like goofy all night long. You can't sleep well, or hot flashes, or whatever it is that's disrupting that sleep. You want to try to get that, I'll say, fixed as much as you can. The second one is nutrition. And nutrition and sleep are considered the two cornerstones. Those are by far your most important parts of recovery. Nutrition, you guys have probably heard this from all of us. You know, fluids help remove byproduct, protein helps make muscle, fats help your nervous system control itself, and then what am I missing? Carbohydrates basically run the rest of your body and fuel our bodies. So you need to have good quality nutrition to make that recovery go smoothly and improve faster. And we really harp on, I do, I don't, everybody else might be a little bit better than I am, but I harp on you guys. What are you guys eating after your workout? You know, you're going to go home, you're going to have some protein. But if you go home and you have like, you know, your protein shake and have a lot of fluids, and then you eat crappy the next, 48 hours, that protein bar is great, but the rest of it is not helping you in your recovery. So it is something that has to be done more frequently than less frequently of having good quality nutrition. Then we have the category of other modalities, and I like how they just put other modalities. Those are, think of them as like more environmental factors. It's the self-myofascial release that we just talked about, percussive therapy. But some others that I think are important for you guys to know about. One is cold immersion. You guys have probably all seen, the athletes have dunked themselves in cold tubs. Back when I was an athletic trainer, we used to make the cold tub as cold as we could. It was literally filled with ice and then water, and we would just dunk them, and we would try to get it as cold as possible. We now know that that was bad. That we really just created a huge rebound effect. No wonder why Akron U did so poorly in football. But now we know that about 59 degrees is what's considered the perfect temperature. So if you're looking at doing any kind of cold immersion therapy and like if I've got somebody with an ankle, I'll just dunk them in a tub, like a 5-gallon bucket. But look for about that 59 degrees, and trust me, that's cold. Yeah, it's still not like nice. And cold immersion therapy helps a lot with inflammation. So if you have an injury or a muscle that's really overly fatigued, or you're a little inflamed, that's going to help you out. Another one is diaphragmatic breathing. It's being able to like use your diaphragm to breathe more so than your belly. And the easiest way is just put your hands right here, and you should feel your rib cage expand and come back in, expand and come back in as you breathe. And with somebody like an athlete who, if they're playing or they're you're what? You're like, oh. So, or if you have that workout like before you go to bed, and you're, how you get a little bit wired sometimes with the workout and you're trying to sleep, diaphragmatic breathing helps to control your nervous system. You need about 5 minutes, and some people will do that box breathing where you inhale for 4, feel this expand, hold your breath for 4, exhale for 4, feel it cave back in, and just focus on your breathing. And that will start to bring your nervous system down so that you can recover a little bit faster, because it's not trying to fire and trying to make all those excitable muscles move. Contrast water therapy. we used to do this a lot. I try to get people that maybe aren't totally into the cold water immersion to do some kind of contrast therapy. It's a hot shower and then dumping into a cold tub. Hot shower, cold tub. And sometimes you'll go back and forth, especially on smaller things where you can do that. You can have like a 5-gallon bucket of, hot and cold water, and you can go from one to the other. And you usually spend about 5 minutes in each and go back and forth twice if you have the time and the ability. But that allows your muscles to act like a pump and constrict and expand, and all of that byproduct. And we use that term because it's a myriad of things: fluid, calcium, tissue, and it allows it to act, your muscles to act like a pump and push it back out into your bloodstream and be removed. Great for inflammation, great for very sore muscles, anything like that. Massage and manual therapy. So when you can all go home and be like, Danielle told me I had to get a massage after my workouts. So, but if you have a good masotherapist or somebody who can do good manual therapy, they are your best friend because they allow you to relax and they can take care of that kind of therapy, a good physical therapist, that myofascial, not self-myofascial release. But you have to have somebody skilled. The one thing that you don't want to see is somebody, like, say you go into a masotherapist and you're like, yeah, my neck's really tight, and they work on your neck for an hour. Last thing you want to have happen. They can work on it, come off of it. They might go back to it, come off of it, because if not, you're just going to break it down, break it down, break it down, and you're not going to see the results you want because there's way too much breakdown. But the purpose is to move waste out of those muscles so that then they can contract normally and you'll have much less restriction. 2 more. KT taping or kinesiotaping. Uh, are you guys familiar with KT taping at all? So it's a form of taping that uses an elastic tape that stretches and then it's applied and then it causes it to come back in, and it creates a little bit of pull on the tissue and allows the fascia to be pulled off of the muscle some. I know Tom has used it lately. I've probably taped a couple of you here and there. It's good for stability, but it's also really good for myofascial release if somebody knows how to use it. Now, here's the thing, on Instagram and all of that, you can find great people that can show you how to tape really well. And then you also have the not so great people showing you how to tape. So when in doubt, find the most reputable, like somebody that sells KT tape or a brand of it. Ask me, ask somebody on how to tape, because it is very technique based, but it is a great way, especially if you are somebody like Tom, if you don't mind me using you as an example, somebody has a wrist that maybe feels a little unstable, a little sore, but they want to keep going with their golf game. They can do different tapings to allow that stability to happen, and they can keep going. Last but not least is everybody's favorite, stretching. Whether you stretch yourself, whether you have somebody stretch you, your stretching is going to increase blood flow, reduce pain, and it's going to make you feel better. Again, for that recovery aspect. So whenever we look at recovery, the one thing that I want to stress to you guys is that recovery needs to be planned as much as your workouts need to be planned. A good stimulus or good workout is going to have variable intensities, variable modalities, different like weights, different physiological systems being used. As an example, you might walk, run, do cardio one day, or one part of your workout. You might lift another day. You might do core work another day. So different types of workouts that hit different physiological systems. And then they all need to be alternated in a rational way so that you get the benefits and you're not just overworking anything or underworking anything. And that's the workout part. Now your recovery should follow suit. You had a super hard, heavy, high intensity workout. And when I say hard, heavy, high intensity, everybody's hard, heavy, high intensity is their own. It doesn't matter. Like yours is not going to be mine. It's not going to be Abby's. Let's face facts. So it doesn't matter. It's just hard for you, whatever that is, and whatever is light for you. Your recovery needs to follow suit. So if you have that hard, you have to have a good recovery period of time. 24 to 48 hours. If you have a lighter day, you're going to have a lighter recovery. You're going to do a little bit less. You won't have to do as much. So all of that needs to match up. And that's one of the things that like we as trainers do for you guys, whether you realize it or not. We try to make sure that you're doing it. We can't always make you, but we try really, really hard to make all of that work. So, okay. Does anybody have any questions just right now? Perfect. What we're going to do is we're going to pass out some foam rollers. As you can do your heel. I'm going to show you a couple of ways to improve it and work with it. So depending on how tight you are, what you've done in the past, what you're familiar with, if you know how to do this, feel free. But if you can't lift your butt up, you can be right here. You can lift up and you can be here. And rolling in and out is going to get in the inside portion and outside portion of your calf. If you can do both, you can be here. If you need more pressure, you can stack a foot, and this is going to put more pressure and allow you to get a little bit deeper into that fascia. And again, it all depends on what you can tolerate. And you want to do about 5 to 6 passes. So remember, start practicing that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 5. 1, 2, 4, 5. Good. And that's going to allow the foam roller to get within the muscle tissues and actually do some good. Not that you can't roll fast. It's not that you aren't going to have any benefit, but just not quite the benefit that you're thinking of. So do both sides too while you're down. Because a lot of times it's not the hamstring that is tight, it's the calves, or it's going to be your hip flexors causing some pelvic tilt, causing that hamstring to be on stretch. Okay. So if you foam roll your hamstrings and you're like, that's not very tight, it's okay. It's just not. You just move on. Go to the next muscle, but you will probably find that your calves or some other areas tighten, giving that pull, that line of pull, creating the problem. So hamstrings, same thing. You can just be up here. You want to go from top of the knee to the bottom of the hip, and you're going to roll. You can use this leg for some assistance. You can be on top. And you can roll in and out a little bit to get inside and outside hamstring muscles. Good. And for those of you who this is tight, then it is just your hamstrings. Another thing to kind of keep in mind, which a lot of times people don't necessarily need this, but if you put anything on stretch, it's going to make, it's going to give you the ability to get deeper within that muscle because the muscle fibers are stretched out. So as an example, if you're doing calves and you can really get all the way into that calf and you need a little bit more, just pull back and put that calf on stretch, and that's going to allow you to get deeper. Same thing with hamstrings. You can't stretch your hamstring, but you can stretch your calves that are in connection with that. And a lot of times that can get a little bit deeper. For somebody that wants a little bit more, or you did just have that really hard workout and you need something a little deeper and you can tolerate it. So then we're going to move on to glutes. So glutes are 3 glute muscles. The big one, glute maximus, that is actually my kid's favorite muscle, glute maximus, is big pinnate shaped muscle. So you want to sit on it, and the best way is to go a little bit at an angle. Okay, if you are here, not that you aren't going to hit your glutes, but you're going to hit a little bit more of the fascia connecting to your sacrum or your tailbone than you are your glutes. You want to kind of get a little bit over to the side for that. And again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you might hit a few other things, along with that glute that's right here. A lot of your tensor fasciae latae, your glute medius, all kind of comes in right here. And so you might get an edge of kind of all of it. Doesn't matter, that's fine. Hit it all. Hit anything you can while you're over there. Then we have our piriformis. So just to explain the piriformis, you guys can do both sides of your glutes. Your piriformis is an external rotator of your hip, especially with the bent knee. So it causes this kind of motion, more so than this with the straight knee. This is more tensor fasciae latae and IT band, where this is more piriformis. There's a lot of external rotators of our hip. And piriformis it's a pretty small muscle. It's pear-shaped. It's up kind of in the center of your buttocks. So a lot of times people mistake those two, your glutes and your piriformis, on which one is tight. Your piriformis also has your sciatic nerve running by it, right beside it. So you don't have to be super conscientious and scared to work that piriformis, but you do have to go, is my foot numb after doing this, like I talked about? Maybe I'm on the wrong area. Maybe I'm hitting the nerve, and that's what's really irritated more so than the piriformis. But the easiest way to get to your piriformis is by going over under the glute. You're then going to take that leg that's down, you're going to cross it over, and you got a little variability here because everybody's got a little different placement. Cross this if you can, and the more that you put it on stretch by pulling it towards you and extending your back, and then rolling from that position, and you will find it should be a small area that you're almost like a trigger point that you're feeling, and it's going to be almost smack dab in the center of your butt. If it's a little high, like up towards the top of your pelvis, that's your glute medius, which is fine too. You can hit that. It's just a smaller muscle that helps, that gives you more extension, like lets your leg go behind you. Yeah, and then switch sides. Yeah, remember, few passes here, just a few passes. Now, because of just general location and attachments, some people do better with their leg out. Some people do better really hugging that knee in. Everybody just likes it a different way. You just kind of work with it a little bit, and you'll find the way that you feel the right thing more so than like another position. Now we're going to go into an area called your quadratus lumborum. And a lot of people think of this as their low back. And remember how I talked about kind of avoiding that lumbar spine. So whenever you work your quadratus lumborum, basically attaches ribs to hips. It's right here, either side. It's a little concave like this, but it's inside. It's on the inside of your rib cage and inside of your pelvis. So whenever it contracts, it actually causes you to extend here. It assists in extension with some of your other spinalis muscles and muscles that are on either side of your vertebrae. It gets really tight though, because we like to stand with a little bit of like lumbar sway like this. And so it tends to shorten then because it's in that position, and we want to loosen that up. Now, if any of you have disc issues in your lumbar spine, I would suggest that you see and watch what I'm doing before you like decide, hey, let's just try this. Because the key is getting to the side enough. You're not trying to necessarily go over the spine. You're trying to go over the side here. So you're going to come down. I usually get almost into like that glute position, and then you can slowly roll yourself down and get into that. I call it the meaty area of above my hip. Over, kind of like over the crest of your pelvis. And that is because that's the insertion, one of the insertion points. You're going to often feel that. So if you're QL, you will know it. Yeah. And this is sometimes why too, like we foam roll, but you know, if you are like super fatigued and say your arms are tired from a workout and you're like, I can't hold myself up well, you know, pull out a Theragun, you know, finish some things with that, which will and you foam rolled enough too. Here, try this one. How far away? So then that's also where we're looking at avoiding the floating ribs. So if you feel your ribs, you know, and if you're out, you're not going to hit your floating ribs, but once you get up into that rib, you want to just stop. So again, think of it like the love handles, or, you know, that's the area. It's a pretty small, maybe this big. Yeah, yes, yeah. So like I'm going to, you can go, it's going to get the spinalis muscles beside your vertebrae, not going to get that QL, that quadratus lumborum, and that can still be tight. So you can roll through your lumbar spine and then catch a little on each side. Grab this. Okay, where am I? What's next? Oh, IT band. Okay, so your iliotibial band comes from a muscle called your tensor fasciae latae, which is a small muscle, basically right here. And it's got the longest tendon in our body, your iliotibial band, going from your iliacus all the way down to that tibial area. It actually attaches to the head of your fibula, so it totally crosses the knee. Because it's tendon, and it's very, very long. It doesn't contract really well. And because it doesn't contract really well, it tends to get tight and stay tight. It's also an external rotator with a straight knee. So when we stand, this is tight, it's shorter. When we're here, it's not as short. If we would be pigeon-toed, it would be even more stretched out. And because when we walk, we naturally externally rotate to make our biomechanics of our foot, we tend to have tight IT bands pretty much across the board. And then if you've got somebody that really externally rotates a lot for any reason, dancers, gymnasts, that kind of person, they will be so tight in this area. And whenever we go to roll it, it's very eye-opening for most people. Now, the biggest thing to remember, and I'm going to show you in a second, is you have to keep a straight knee, because so I've got this long tendon, and here it's on stretch, but then all of a sudden I bend my knee. It allows this to be a shorter distance, and so it takes that stretch off of that IT band, and you're going to get, which again is fine, you're going to end up with lateral quad or lateral hamstring and not get into that IT band. Again, fine, you'll see a lot of, if you get on like an Instagram for a physical therapist, they'll tell you you're not getting in your IT band because if you don't have that straight knee, you're not going to. So if you cannot maintain a straight knee for whatever reason, bad knees, something like that, you're not going to be able to affect that area. It's okay. You're probably going to eventually whenever you get that knee replacement. But if you can, you are going to find it. So if you guys haven't done this before, maybe find out that you haven't done it correctly. Whenever you do, start up high. We're going to work down. And as you get lower and lower, if you get to that point where you're like, that's all I can do because it's very tight, just go that far. Just keep trying to get farther and farther. And actually, Denise, you guys work with Denise, she had looked up some research at one point on it, and I forget exactly why, but that TFL can shorten up by as much as like 6 to 7 inches, I think it is, by people who sit all day. And they just do not have the extension. And that's a huge amount of constriction. So by foam rolling that area regularly, if you are at a desk job, is pretty imperative. So going, sorry, going on your side, straight on your side here, starting up higher in the hip, and you can go all the way up into that hip joint. I cross my leg here, okay, and use your hands and your legs. Socks are a little hard, so if anybody wants to throw their shoes on, please feel free. And you just you try to relax that lower leg, and you try to get all the way down with a straight knee to your knee, back and forth. Good. So now everybody that's doing it, straighten out that knee a little bit more because you might not be, and see if that helps. And don't forget your other side. That's fun. How'd you do there, Kim George? Oh, yeah, go with that one, yeah. So just, and if anybody wants to try some of the others too, maybe not on your IT band, feel free. This one is probably my favorite one. It does grasp and get a little grab onto your skin and fascia. But if you're not super happy doing your IT band in the first place, I would not use that one. No. Guys look good. You'll be so loose by the time this workshop's over. And maybe a little good. Yeah, nice job, guys. Wow, everybody's quiet on this one, so I'm guessing either we're starting to get to the ones that really hurt or... Okay, and this next one, your adductors or the inner thigh that cause your legs to like come back into the center point you have 2 types of adductors, short and long. Short basically just cause an adduction in this way, whether the knee is bent. Longer are going to affect your knee and pull from here to here with a straight knee. This is another one. It's kind of like the IT band. It's a lot tighter than you probably think it's going to be. So use a little caution if you haven't done this one before. And setup is a little bit different too. So you're going to be here, And you're going to come onto an all-four stance, and this is going to be beside you. And see how my end point is right in between. From that point, and again, this might be where for some of you a theragun is super useful, because if you can't get into this position, a theragun is a good bridge. And then you're going to put one leg up and see how my knee bent. But I'm going to drop my body right to the center. I can show you on another angle too. So my knee is bent. So I'm going to roll in as close as I can to the groin, out as close as I can to the knee with the bent knee. And then you're also going to straighten that knee, and you're going to do the same thing, in and out. And again, not everybody can get into this position yet, and that's okay. Good. And this is also why you don't really want to do this at the YMCA, because you look a little ridiculous. And you feel a little funny kind of rolling all over the floor. So don't forget to do both sides nice and slow. Adductors are super important for your pelvic floor. And it's never a topic that people like, but pelvic floor is important for all of us as we get older, and making sure that it's loose and not tight and restricted. And one of the best ways to do this is by foam rolling or stretching that area out. Our rectus abdominis, the big main muscle of our abs, has a tendency to get tight, especially if you do a lot of abdominal work, a lot of planking, or if your hips are tight and you have a lot of, like I said early on, where like you can't get out of the chair and without like fully extending. This can sometimes be a little restricted. So I'm going to show you while I'm standing, then I'll show you laying down, because once I'm down, you can't really see the ball, but you'll see what's going on. So you're going to take your tennis ball. Here's my belly button. You're going to go right to the side. This is that abdominal area. You're going to start it there, and here's my hip bone. My hip flexors are kind of in this, like in the little pocket right there. You're going to go from beside my belly button into that pocket. Here, back and forth, at a little bit of an angle, okay? But whenever you're on the ground, it looks like this, which doesn't look like a lot of anything. You're going to lay down first, and sometimes people get here. I know for myself personally, this kind of takes my breath away. So this is a little tight. And then you just do a small movement trying to roll to get it in the pocket of your hip flexor, and then come back to beside your belly button and roll and back. And again, while you're doing that roll and moving the ball, try to breathe and relax all of that musculature. And that is much easier said than done sometimes. And then get to the other side. And this is another one that at the YMCA just looks a little weird, you know. So we're particularly going to be hitting like the upper fibers of your pec major, the big chest muscle, and your pec minor. So your pec minor kind of runs along here. And its purpose is to actually, whenever it contracts, it's going to lift your clavicle and allow you to improve your posture by lifting that clavicle, which will then also, because of the way that the bony attachment is going to allow you to drop your scapulas down. So a lot of times people are really tight here if they're at a desk all day, and this kind of drops throughout the day. And by doing this technique, it can help relieve some of that so that you can stand taller. So and I'll show you again up here and then down there. You're going to start, and so here's my what's called your SC joint, your sternoclavicular joint. And you're going to start right on the inside, and you're just going to roll to the shoulder and back, shoulder and back. And when to get in a good position to have enough pressure, it helps almost be in like a push-up position. So you're going to push your shoulder down, and the other hand is going to be up like a push-up, and you're going to roll this way. I don't know if you guys can see me. Yep. And this is again why sometimes a theragun is super useful, because you don't have to be like this on the ground. And then you're going to drive that shoulder in and back and forth. Wrong. Oh, yeah. And some people aren't going to do it. Yeah. Some people are just not going to be able to manipulate that. We're good. I do love watching people do this one. It's great. I'm not sure. We got Kim over there doing a lot of stuff. Wait, what happened? Vanessa, can I borrow you for a second? Come on over. I'm going to have your back facing them because I want to show this one junction. It'll be easier to show on somebody else. So the next one that I want to do, again, we're going to use the ball, is going to be your posterior rotator cuff and lats, kind of just depending on where you're moving and how it hits in there. A lot of people, that posterior, the back part of your rotator cuff, it actually, even though it's back here, it causes internal rotation because of the way that it inserts. So it comes in this way. And so whenever it gets very tight, you can't do that. You can't pull this back out. So if you are right here, here's our armpit, and I can feel, you know, like if I'm going in with my thumb, I can feel, and I can literally go over that. So are you okay? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And you want that like cross friction movement. You're trying to go this way, not up and down. So you're trying to go over that posterior rotator to your armpit, and then you're going to kind of just go in like an up and down movement. And you should, if it's tight, you would feel it going over, like I'll say a lump, which is the muscle. That's also where you can hit some brachial plexus. So if anybody's hands are numb, I need you guys to stop. Yeah. So your latissimus dorsi, that big, broad mid-back muscle, largest muscle in your body, in case you wanted to know. I'm going to use this one. So when but your lats also, if they are tight, will cause you to internally rotate. So if you are in that position a lot, your lats are going to be tighter, not looser. And so this might be a little bit more than most people expect early on, kind of like the IT band. You're going to be in a sideline position. Start in your armpit. Try to put your arm above your head with your thumb up. Okay. And from here, you can go up into the tricep a little bit if you want to, especially if your triceps are tight. And then you can roll all the way down and get all the way towards like about mid-chest, close to the bottom of your ribs, and then roll all the way back up. All the way here, and all the way back up. Good. Ouch. I know. You were, well, maybe you weren't sitting all day, I don't know. But